Welcome back. While the House held its first public hearing on this impeachment inquiry, something else huge was happening on the other end of Pennsylvania Avenue. President Trump hosted Turkish President Erdogan at the White House. In addition to a meeting and a press conference with the two leaders, a group of Republican senators only. They didn't invite any of the Democrats to deal with Turkey, but only the Republican senators, all of whom voiced concern about Turkey's military offensive in northern Syria, also met with Erdogan. With the president kind of playing mediator. It was an odd moment there. Kelly O'Donnell joins me now from the White House. Also joining me here in studio, our chief foreign correspondent, Richard Engel. Kelly, lay out what happened. He brought the press in with what looked like the president was mediating a debate between Republican senators and Erdogan.
And it was an unscheduled added event in the Oval Office. And you're right, the tension is running deep between those particular Republican senators who are very frustrated by Turkey's actions in Syria, and especially with respect to the Kurds, frustrated at the president, too, over this issue. And President Trump acknowledged today that there are real serious tension points in the relationship between U.S. and Turkey, even though he was so effusive in his praise of President Erdogan and welcoming him to the White House. It really is a stark thing when you think about Turkey buying Russian-made military equipment at a time when certainly the U.S. is very uncomfortable about that. They are a NATO ally. That is not an okay thing to do if you're a NATO ally. And this obvious question about what's happening to the Kurds. So there was a lot of tension today. And the president was saying he could try to work through that and is hoping they can resolve some of these things, while he stressed the good relationship he has with Erdogan.
All right. Richard, you're basically in northern Syria for the last 3 weeks. I'm glad to see you safe and sound here for a little bit. Those Republican senators are speaking for a bipartisan group of senators who obviously are concerned about what Turkey did. Explain what Turkey's doing.
So Turkey has launched an invasion into a pocket of northern Syria. That pocket of northern Syria for about the last 5 years has been run by Kurds, but run by Kurds who live in Syria. They were establishing their own homeland there. They had a name for it. They called it Rojava. It was a peaceful, pro-American enclave. Turkey always hated it. Turkey always said the fighters there were terrorists.
They thought it was going to be a staging ground for Turkish Kurds basically come in and go after them. That was the paranoia,
Not
correct?
just that. That was part of the paranoia, that it would be a staging
PKK,
ground.
the terrorist group
I think the deeper concern is that the Kurds there, they were afraid could inspire Kurds inside of Turkey to demand the same. That if the Kurds got their own autonomous homeland in Syria, there are, by some estimates, almost 20 million Kurds inside Turkey. And there are a lot of people who were inside Turkey who were worried, oh, they're going to ask for autonomy in the country as well. So they went in, they launched this operation with the United States blessing, with President Trump actively allowing this to happen, pulling back American troops, opening the door for this invasion, and attacking these Syrian Kurds, who are the same people who have been fighting with U.S. forces for the last 5 years against ISIS. So what we saw today was President Trump thanking Erdogan, saying, you guys have been so great in the fight against ISIS. Turkey didn't really take part in the fight against ISIS. In fact, most of the ISIS fighters ended up in Syria because they went through Turkey. The people who fought against ISIS with U.S. forces were the same Syrian Kurds who are now under attack.
You were among the first reporters on air to talk about these militias that Turkey was essentially allowing to slaughter people, to essentially commit war crimes, and then they claimed they were militias so they could claim it wasn't members of the Turkish army. It's
and there have been several U.S. officials who've gone on record and said they're committing war crimes.
That, apparently we have video evidence of this. Erdogan is at least admitting to some of this, I guess.
No, he's not at all.
Well, he's admitting that there are these Arab militias.
Oh, he's admitting they are.
That's my point.
But he's talking about, no, they're fully acknowledged. They're not just hidden. They're advised by the Turkish government. The U.S. calls them Turkish-supported organizations. There's a name for them. The way Turkey's describing it is that they're not militias. These are Syrian freedom fighters who are going back to liberate their own homeland and fighting against the Kurdish terrorists, and that they are at the vanguard of a movement, and that millions of refugees are going to be following them. So the way Turkey is pointing this, and you heard it today in Erdogan's statements, I see the clock is. Are you going to? Is the music starting to play at the outset?
If you're not careful.
So the idea is that Turkey's using these militias, which it calls a Syrian freedom them will be millions of
And again,
refugees.
our own satellites are capturing some of this, and we have.
And while U.S. forces are there, not allowed to help their allies who are being attacked.
Kelly O'Donnell, Richard Engel, I'm sorry we ran out of time. This is obviously an important story to also be following. Thank you both. That's all we have for tonight. We'll be back tomorrow with more Meet the Press Daily.